For 15 years, everyone believed Marcus Reeves was a successful businessman who tragically lost his family during Hurricane Katrina, a devoted father whose wife and children vanished in the chaos, leaving him to rebuild alone. He crafted a new life, remarried into wealth, and became a pillar of the community, his tragic past earning him sympathy and respect wherever he went. But when three figures appeared at his company's anniversary gala, faces he never thought he'd see again, they didn't come seeking reunion or revenge. They came with a single message that would reveal the truth. He hadn't lost his family in that storm. He had abandoned them, and they had been building something far more powerful than the empire he thought he controlled. Subscribe and tell us where you're watching from as we uncover how one woman's patience became the ultimate reckoning. The Pinnacle Plaza gleamed against the Dallas skyline, its black granite exterior reflecting the afternoon sun like liquid obsidian. Inside the 40th floor conference room, Marcus Reeves stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, surveying the city that had made him wealthy. At 58, he possessed the quiet confidence of a man who had conquered tragedy and emerged victorious. "Today marks our anniversary," Marcus said to the assembled crowd of investors and employees. "Hurricane Katrina took my first family, my wife Elena, and our 2 children. But from that devastating loss, I learned that we must always move forward." The audience nodded sympathetically. They had heard this story before. The developer who had been visiting properties in Dallas when the hurricane struck New Orleans, who had rushed back to find his modest home destroyed and his family among the missing. His current wife, Patricia Whitmore Reeves, watched from the front row. 20 years his junior, she had met Marcus at a charity benefit 8 years ago. Her family's medical empire had provided the capital for Marcus's most ambitious projects. Reeves Development Group now manages over $2 billion in assets. Marcus continued, "We've built hospitals, schools, and homes for thousands. From tragedy, we've created opportunity." The applause was warm. As he accepted congratulations from board members, his assistant, James Chen, approached with an encrypted tablet. "Sir, there's been an unusual request," James said quietly. 3 individuals are in the lobby claiming they have a scheduled appointment. They say it's regarding the Katrina Memorial Fund. Marcus frowned. "I don't have any appointments today. They insisted you would want to see them. They said to tell you they have a message about what was left behind in the storm." Something flickered across Marcus's face. Security verified their identities. They provided documentation from Morrison International. That's the conglomerate that just acquired the Southland development we've been pursuing. Marcus's jaw tightened. Morrison International had appeared 5 years ago, methodically acquiring properties across the Gulf Coast, always outbidding Reeves Development by narrow margins. "Send them to Conference Room B," Marcus said. "I'll give them 5 minutes." As he excused himself from the celebration, Marcus straightened his tie. The man, staring back from the polished elevator doors, had built an empire on a foundation of sympathy and strategic partnerships. Conference Room B occupied the southeast corner of the 38th floor. Marcus entered to find 3 people seated. At the far end, 2 women and a man, all professionally dressed. "Mr. Reeves," the woman at the center spoke, her voice carrying a Louisiana accent refined by years elsewhere. "Thank you for seeing us. I know this is your special day." She was perhaps 40, with dark hair pulled back elegantly. To her left sat a younger woman with striking green eyes. The man on the right appeared to be early 30s. "I'm Elena Morrison," Chief Operating Officer of Morrison International. This is Sophia Morrison, our Head of Strategic Planning, and Daniel Morrison, Director of Legal Affairs. Marcus's hand stilled on the table. Morrison, that's an interesting coincidence. Is it? Elena asked. We've been following your career with great interest, particularly your narrative about loss and rebuilding. The room's temperature seemed to drop. Many people lost everything during Katrina, Marcus said carefully, though most survivors don't claim their families were swept away when they were actually abandoned at a Red Cross shelter in Baton Rouge. The words hung in the air. Marcus's expression remained neutral, but his fingers pressed harder against the table's surface. What he didn't know, as he faced these unexpected visitors, was that some storms never truly pass. They simply gather, strength in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to make landfall once again. Morrison International's presence in Dallas real estate was like a shadow, always there, never quite visible. From her position at the window, Elena Morrison surveyed the city with the calculated gaze of someone who had spent years mapping every building, every connection, every weakness in Marcus Reeves's empire. The death certificates you filed are public record, Daniel said, sliding a document across the polished table. 7 months after Katrina, presumed death due to being missing. Marcus's voice remained steady. Standard procedure for disaster victims. The authorities required proof of exhaustive searching, Sophia interrupted. We have your hotel records. 3 days in New Orleans, then straight to Dallas, where Patricia Whitmore was waiting. The conference room walls displayed architectural, awards and newspaper clippings chronicling Marcus's rise. One headline read, "From Katrina's ashes, developer builds empire on second chances." Whatever game you're playing, Marcus began. Sit down, Marcus. Eleanor's voice carried an authority that made him pause. When she stood, the afternoon light shifted, revealing her face clearly. The years had changed her. Added lines silvered her temples, but the bone structure was unmistakable. His legs gave out. Impossible. Elena died. The children. Sophia. And Daniel, Elena said simply, gesturing to her companions. Though they go by Morrison now? Marcus stared at the woman he had married 28 years ago, the children he had left at a shelter, his daughter's green eyes, his mother's eyes, his son's strong jaw, his own father's feature. February 12th, Elena continued, her tone conversational. 3 days after you opened the first shell company in Singapore, that was your mistake. If you had created legitimate subsidiaries, I might have continued watching. But fraud, that required action. Through the glass walls, the anniversary celebration continued. Patricia Whitmore Reeves chatted with investors, unaware that her husband's past was unraveling 30 feet away. You've been watching me, Marcus said slowly. For how long? Since the beginning, Daniel replied. While you built your reputation on our supposed deaths, we were studying, learning, growing. Elena returned to her seat. Do you remember what you used to say? That real money wasn't in building, it was in controlling what got built. You were right. She opened her portfolio, revealing documents that made Marcus's blood run cold. Property acquisitions, permit applications, financial records, a complete map of Reeves Development's operations. Morrison International didn't appear from nowhere, Sophia explained. It started in a FEMA trailer in Baton Rouge. Mom worked 3 jobs while getting her business degree. We did homework by candlelight when the power went out. The settlement money from various disaster relief funds, Elena added. Legally obtained, carefully invested. Your first competitor was a single mother with 2 kids and a laptop, operating from subsidized housing. Marcus felt the walls closing. What do you want? Justice, Elena replied. Morrison International is offering to acquire Reeves Development Group. Above market value. Your investors profit, employees keep their jobs, Patricia's family holdings remain untouched. And if I refuse? Daniel opened his laptop, displaying financial records. Then tomorrow, the insurance fraud documentation goes to the district attorney. The falsified death certificates to vital records. Patricia receives a package explaining exactly who she married. The empire Marcus had built on sympathy suddenly felt fragile as glass. Through the window, Dallas stretched endlessly, but the conference room had become a courtroom where his past stood in judgment. You have 1 hour, Elena said, checking her watch. You can announce your retirement at the same event where you've told our death story so many times. Poetic, don't you think? They rose to leave. At the door, Eleanor paused. We've waited this long. Another hour won't matter. Marcus Reeves had perfected the art of public grief. In the early days after Katrina, he had practiced in hotel mirrors. The slight tremor in his voice when mentioning his lost family, the way his eyes would grow distant, the pause that suggested overwhelming emotion barely contained. Now, alone. In conference room B, those carefully rehearsed emotions abandoned him entirely. He walked to his private office, using the executive elevator to avoid the ongoing celebration. His sanctuary occupied the 41st floor's corner, walls lined with photos of him among senators and business titans. Every image a testament to how far he'd climbed from that waterlogged house in New Orleans. The secure laptop revealed what he'd suspected. Morrison International existed on paper for exactly 5 years, emerging fully formed with holdings across the Gulf Coast. Every search led to the same result, a company built specifically to challenge his own. His phone buzzed. Patricia. Darling, where did you disappear to? The mayor's asking about the harbor development. Marcus stared at the phone. Patricia had never questioned his tragic backstory. She had held him during nightmares, stood beside him at memorial services, even insisted on naming their foundation after his lost family. Something came up with Morrison. I'll explain later. He ended the call and pulled up financial records. The legal costs of fighting would cripple him. The publicity would destroy everything. Patricia's family would distance themselves. His investors would flee. But accepting meant admitting defeat to the family he'd abandoned. The desk phone rang. Security. Mr. Reeves, the Morrison representatives are waiting in the lobby. They've prepared a preliminary press release about the acquisition, pending your approval. The pressure was masterful. Elena knew him well enough to understand he needed to feel in control, even in surrender. Tell them 30 minutes, have legal bring acquisition paperwork. Marcus finished his scotch and prepared for his final performance. The elevator ride down felt endless. When the doors opened, he stepped into the celebration with his practiced smile. Patricia spotted him immediately. Marcus, you look pale. Is everything all right? He took her hands, studying her face. The beauty that had first attracted him, the intelligence that made her valuable, the trust built on quicksand. Morrison's made an offer, a generous one. I'm going to accept. Her shock was genuine. But why? This company is your life. Sometimes the best deals are unexpected. Trust me. She searched his face, but accepted the half answer as she had so many others. When will you announce it? Marcus looked toward the AV setup ready for his triumph speech. Right now, the sooner we start our new chapter, the better. He approached the microphone as conversations died down. The room turned expectantly toward him. Friends, partners, family, he began, the words ash in his mouth. Today marks not just our anniversary, but a transformation. Morrison International has made an exceptional offer for Reeves development, one that secures our legacy while opening new horizons. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Patricia stood frozen, processing the suddenness. Change requires courage, Marcus continued, finding refuge in corporate platitudes. After building from tragedy, it's time to pass the torch to those who can carry it forward. I'll be stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. The shock was palpable. Board members exchanged glances. Investors reached for phones. But Marcus saw none of it. His eyes were fixed on the lobby monitors, where 3 figures waited patiently. The family he'd declared dead, now poised to claim everything he'd built on their graves. His confession was complete, even if the audience didn't yet understand what they'd witnessed. The executive floor hummed with controlled chaos as news of the acquisition spread. Patricia Whitmore Reeves held court among Dallas's medical elite, maintaining composure despite her private confusion. "Patricia, darling," Dr. Vivian Cho approached. "This is so sudden. When did Marcus decide?" Patricia adjusted her anniversary gift, Tahitian pearls that now felt heavy. "Marcus sees opportunities others miss. It's what makes him special." She excused herself, finding James Chen coordinating with security by the elevators. As Marcus's right hand for 7 years, James had seen him handle crises with unshakable composure. This sudden capitulation was unprecedented. "Mr. Chen," Harrison Blackwood, the CFO, interrupted. "Morrison International. They've been undercutting us for years. Why would Marcus sell to them?" "He seemed compelled by their offer," James replied diplomatically. In the security office, Tom Rodriguez reviewed footage from the lobby cameras. The 3 Morrison representatives intrigued him. The way the older woman had signed the visitor log, and hesitating as if remembering how to write her name. He pulled their digital entry records. Clean backgrounds, verified IDs, yet facial recognition found no matches before 5 years ago. In corporate circles, privacy services could scrub digital footprints, but 3 executives with synchronized digital births. Tom reached for his phone, then stopped. Mr. Reeves had personally approved their entry. Whatever was happening was intentional. Back at the celebration, the ecosystem Marcus had cultivated began fracturing. Margaret Sterling, the city planning commissioner who had fast-tracked his developments, cornered Judge William Crawford. "Did you know about this?" she demanded. "Nothing. Marcus has always confided in me about major decisions." The judge looked troubled. "This Morrison International, what do we know about them?" Neither noticed how efficiently Morrison personnel were already moving through the building. Not infiltrators, but allies. Employees who had waited years for this moment. Jennifer Marshall, Marcus's executive assistant, met quietly with a Morrison representative in a supply closet. "The files you requested are ready," she whispered. "Every off-the-books transaction, every questionable permit. I've been documenting everything since my nephew disappeared in Katrina." Similar scenes played throughout the building. The head of accounting, whose mother had died in an abandoned hospital. The maintenance supervisor, whose brother had been separated from his children in the chaos. Each had been drawn to Reeves' development by different paths, but Morrison International had given them common purpose. Patricia finally found Marcus in his office, staring out at the city lights. "You owe me an explanation," she said. "The real one." He turned, and she saw something in his face she'd never seen before. Fear. "The past has a way of returning," he said carefully. "Morrison International knows things about the early days, things that could complicate our lives." "What things?" "Your family died in Katrina unless—" Her medical training made her observant. "Unless they didn't." Marcus's silence was confirmation enough. "Oh my God," Patricia breathed. "The memorial fund, our children, Emma is named after—" She couldn't finish. "I need you to trust me," Marcus said desperately. "The acquisition protects everyone. Our family, our employees, our future." Patricia stepped back as if he'd struck her. "Our family built on what, Marcus? What else have you lied about?" Through the office windows, the Morrison team entered the building's main lobby. Elena Morrison walked with purpose, her children flanking her. The building Marcus had conquered was about to change hands, but more than property was being transferred. An empire built on lies was being claimed by truth, and everyone within its walls would soon understand that some foundations, no matter how carefully constructed, could never support the weight of their own deception. The executive conference room transformed into a negotiation battlefield. Legal documents spread across the table like terms of surrender. Elena sat at the center, flanked by her children and a team of lawyers who moved with surgical precision. Marcus had brought his own counsel. 3 senior partners from Harbinson and Associates. Patricia sat beside him, still processing the implications of what she'd begun to suspect. "The valuation is generous," Richard Harbinson noted, 15% above market estimates. "We believe in paying fair value," Elena replied. "Reeves Development has excellent fundamentals. Under proper management, its potential can be realized." The emphasis on proper management wasn't lost on anyone. "These employee protection clauses," another lawyer observed. 5-year guarantees, enhanced severance, unusually generous. Daniel leaned forward. "We value human capital. We've seen too many communities devastated by transitions that prioritize profits over people." Patricia finally spoke. "What about the charitable foundations?" "The Elena and Children Memorial Fund has commitments through 2030. Strange stillness settled over the Morrison team. "All commitments will be honored," Elena said carefully, "though we may suggest expanding its mission. Families separated by other circumstances. Abandonment, for instance." Marcus's hands clenched beneath the table. Every word was a precisely aimed arrow. "Mr. Chen has a question," James interrupted, studying Elena directly. "Your company appeared 5 years ago, specifically positioned against Reeves Development. Were we always your target?" Elena smiled genuinely. "Perceptive, Mr. Chen. Yes. Every acquisition, every partnership was chosen for this moment. The resources required, the planning, started in a FEMA trailer," Sophia interjected. "Amazing what people accomplish when properly motivated." Patricia looked between them, grasping undercurrents. "Marcus, what's your real connection to Morrison International?" "We've competed for properties," Marcus said quickly. "Indeed," Elena agreed, tone suggesting volumes. "We've made quite a study of Reeves Development, building from nothing after such personal tragedy." It takes special strength. As lawyers worked through details, the real negotiation happened in subtext. Elena orchestrated it masterfully, extracting concessions wrapped in compliments. "One more matter," she said finally. "Mr. Reeves's ongoing role. The severance is outlined. We're offering additional consulting. 1 year remote. Your institutional knowledge is valuable." Everyone recognized the leash, a way to keep Marcus contained during transition to "before we sign." Elena stood, walking to the window. Marcus found himself drawn to follow. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. "Everything you built, was it worth it?" He looked at their reflections superimposed over Dallas. "I thought it was." And now he had no answer. Behind them, Richard Harbinson cleared his throat. "We need to address the elephant in the room. Mrs. Morrison, your interest in this specific company, your generous terms, there's clearly history here." Eleanor turned. "Yes, Mr. Harbinson, there is history, the kind that shapes everything that comes after." She returned to the table, meeting Marcus's eyes. "Shall we dispense with pretense? Everyone here suspects the truth. Speaking it aloud changes nothing legally, but provides clarity." Marcus went rigid. Patricia gripped the table's edge. 15 years ago, Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. Marcus Reeves told the world his family died in the storm. He built this empire on their memory, their tragedy, their graves. Elena's voice remained conversational. "The only problem? We didn't die. We were abandoned at a Red Cross shelter while he drove to Dallas to start his new life." The conference room erupted. Lawyers reached for phones. Patricia stood abruptly, staring at Marcus in horror. "The acquisition proceeds as outlined," Eleanor continued calmly. "Nothing about the truth changes the business transaction. It simply explains why Morrison International exists." The disruption was complete. In one moment, Marcus's carefully constructed narrative shattered, and everyone understood they weren't witnessing a business deal. They were watching justice finally arrive. The revelation hung in the air like smoke from a detonated bomb. Patricia stood frozen, her surgeon's hands trembling. The lawyers sat in stunned silence, their professional composure shattered. Marcus remained seated, his face a mask of stone. "You have no proof." Daniel opened a leather portfolio, removing documents with methodical precision. Shelter records, security footage, transfer documentation showing Elena Morrison and 2 minors moving through the relief system. "Insurance claims you filed for 3 life policies. Should I continue?" "This is extortion," Marcus said, voice finding strength. "This is disclosure," Elena corrected. "The acquisition remains unchanged. Your retirement package intact. We're not seeking criminal prosecution yet." Patricia finally found her voice. "The memorial services, the foundation in their names, our daughter..." She turned to Marcus, eyes blazing. "I named our daughter after your dead wife." "After a survivor," Sophia said gently. "Just not the way you thought." Richard Harbinson intervened. "This fundamentally alters the legal framework. My client needs time." "Your client has had years," Elena interrupted. "The offer expires at market close. After that, we proceed with criminal referrals." Patricia moved toward the door, then stopped. "Those nightmares you had, calling out for Elena, for the children. I held you through what I thought was grief." Her voice cracked. "Was any of it real?" Marcus's silence answered her. Patricia left, her heels clicking sharp staccato rhythm down the hallway. Through the glass, they could see her collapse onto a bench, her carefully maintained composure finally breaking. James Chen had been silent throughout. but now spoke. The competitive bids, the strategic acquisitions. You weren't just building a company, you were documenting his practices. Every transaction, Elena confirmed, every partnership, every vulnerability. Why now? Marcus asked, hollow. Why wait? Because justice requires power, Elena replied. 15 years ago, who would believe us? A single mother with 2 children against Marcus Reeves, tragic widower with Patricia Whitmore's family backing him. We needed leverage. We built it. Tom. Rodriguez entered without knocking. Mrs. Morrison, the transition team is in place. IT has implemented protocols. All systems remain operational. Thank you, Tom. She turned back to Marcus. Your security chief's nephew was separated from family during Katrina. He understood our mission immediately. You're surrounded by people whose lives were touched by abandonment. They were waiting for someone to give their grievances purpose. The full scope hit Marcus like a physical blow. His empire hadn't been conquered. It had been infiltrated by those who understood loss intimately. The media, he began, will receive a carefully crafted narrative, Elena assured him. Strategic merger, your retirement to pursue other interests. The truth remains in this room unless you force our hand. Sophia pulled up a tablet showing prepared press releases. We've even included quotes from you about passing the torch to capable hands and ensuring Reeves' development's legacy continues. Your reputation survives if you cooperate. It was masterful. They offered him a fiction to replace the one he'd lived. A controlled narrative instead of explosive truth. I'll sign, Marcus said quietly. The documents appeared before him with choreographed precision. Each signature transferred another piece of his life's work to the family he'd discarded. As he signed the final page, he looked at Elena. The children, Patricia's, and mine are innocent, Elena finished. Emma and Michael will know their siblings if they choose. We don't punish children for parental sins. It was more grace than he deserved, delivered by those who had every right to destroy him completely. Marcus set down the pen, understanding that mercy, strategically applied, could cut deeper than any revenge. The final negotiations moved with orchestrated precision. Elena's team had prepared for every contingency, each document revealing another layer of their meticulous planning. The Singapore holdings, Marcus's lawyer said, reviewing financial statements. These shell companies will be dissolved, Daniel stated. Assets returned to the parent company. We've already filed the necessary paperwork. Patricia returned, composed but changed. She took a seat apart from Marcus, creating physical distance that spoke volumes. I need to understand the full scope, she said to Elena. Not for him, for my children. They deserve truth. Elena nodded. We have no desire to harm innocents. Emma and Michael are our siblings, regardless of circumstances. You'd want relationships with them after what he did? Family is complex, Sophia answered. We've learned to separate the father from the children. Marcus watched this exchange, seeing Patricia realign herself with his abandoned family. The isolation was complete. The employee meetings begin tomorrow, Elena announced. Department heads first, then general staff. The message will be consistent. Expansion, not reduction. New opportunities, not lost jobs. You've thought of everything, James Chen observed with professional admiration. We had time, Eleanor replied simply. Richard Harbinson made one last attempt. The publicity risk, if this story breaks, then we all lose, Elena acknowledged, which is why mutual silence benefits everyone. Marcus retains his public dignity. Patricia's medical empire avoids scandal. Employees keep their jobs. We prefer building to destroying. Even after what he did, Patricia asked. Especially after, Elena said. Destruction is easy. Creating something worthwhile from wreckage that requires vision. The documents were finalized. Marcus had signed away his empire, his position, his carefully constructed life. But as lawyers packed briefcases and teams prepared for transition, one question remained. The message, Marcus said suddenly. You said you came with a message. What was it? Elena stood, her children beside her. For the first time since entering the building, she looked directly at him with something approaching pity. The message was simple, Marcus. What you abandon doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it grows stronger in your absence. Sometimes it returns when you least expect it. And sometimes, she gestured to the signed documents, it becomes the very thing that defines your ending. As they filed, Patricia approached Elena. My children, when they learn the truth, will need support, Elena finished. We'll be here. Family, however it forms, requires commitment. Marcus remained seated as the room emptied. Through the windows, Dallas glittered indifferently. His phone buzzed with messages, investors, partners, friends, all reacting to news of the acquisition. None knew they were consoling a man whose past had just reclaimed his future. Tom Rodriguez appeared. Mr. Reeves, I'll need your executive access codes. Even security had shifted allegiance. Marcus provided the codes mechanically, each one another bar in his gilded cage. Your personal items will be packed and sent to your home, Tom continued. The transition team requests you vacate by end of business. By sunset, Marcus Reeves sat in the back of his car, watching the building that bore his name prepare for new leadership. The driver, one of the few staff still loyal, asked, Home? Sir? Marcus almost laughed. Home. He'd had one once in New Orleans, with a struggling business and a family he'd deemed expendable. Now he had a mansion built on their supposed deaths, a wife who couldn't look at him, and children who would soon learn their origin story was a lie. Yes, he said finally, home. But he wondered if he'd ever truly had one, or if homes, like families, were only real when you chose to stay. The next morning, Morrison International's integration began with Swiss precision. Elena established headquarters in Marcus's former office, though she immediately ordered its cold grandeur stripped away. Open concept, she instructed the designers. Glass walls. No more secrets hiding behind mahogany. Department heads filed through for individual meetings, each leaving visibly relieved. The merger wasn't a gutting, it was an expansion. Your mother's approach is remarkable, James Chen told Sophia as they reviewed operational reports. She's keeping everyone valuable while removing only the corruption. She had years to identify who was worth saving, Sophia replied. Tom Rodriguez fed us information about which employees had integrity, who was trapped in Marcus's web versus who helped weave it. 3 floors down, Daniel conducted legal triage. Questionable contracts surfaced like bodies after a flood, sweetheart deals, creative zoning arrangements, the small corruptions that enabled Marcus's rise. Full amnesty for disclosure, he announced to the legal team. Come forward now and we'll rectify without penalties, hide problems, and face consequences later. The revelations poured in. A junior attorney admitted to backdating permits. An accountant revealed off-book transactions. Each confession was documented, addressed. and where possible corrected. Meanwhile, Patricia had retreated to her family's compound. Her brothers, prominent surgeons, rallied around her while lawyers worked to separate her assets from Marcus's tainted legacy. But that afternoon, she called Elena directly. "I need to see you," Patricia said. "Not about lawyers or assets, about truth." They met at a quiet cafe in Uptown. Patricia looked aged by revelation, her usual polish replaced by raw vulnerability. "He had nightmares," she said without preamble. "Called out your name. I thought it was grief. Guilt, perhaps." Elena offered, "Even those who abandon carry scars. Our children, Emma and Michael, they idolized him. The tragic hero who built from loss." Patricia's voice cracked. "How do I tell them?" "With honesty," Elena said. "They're strong enough for truth, and they have siblings who want to know them. After everything, we've learned to separate father in from children. They're innocent." Patricia studied her. "You're either the strongest woman I've met or the most damaged." "Both," Elena admitted. "Strength often comes from damage properly healed." Across town, Marcus sat in his home office, watching news coverage of the merger. The narrative was exactly as Elena promised. Strategic acquisition, planned transition, mutual benefit. His reputation remained intact publicly while crumbling. Privately, his phone rang. Michael, his 12-year-old son. "Dad, Mom won't say what's happening. Why are there lawyers here?" Marcus closed his eyes. The lies had reached their limit. "Can you and Emma come over? There's something I need to tell you." An hour later, his children sat across from him. So young, so trusting, so unprepared. "The family I lost in Katrina," he began slowly. "They didn't die." The words came painfully. Their faces cycled through disbelief, anger, and worse, disappointment. "So we have siblings?" Emma asked when he finished. "Living siblings you told everyone were dead?" "Yes, and Mom named me after—" She couldn't finish. "I want to meet them," Michael said suddenly. "They're our family." Even here, Elena's influence reached. The separation of sins from innocence, grace where none was deserved. By evening, business channels covered the merger, a stunning consolidation in the development sector, analysts reported. Morrison International's acquisition creates a Gulf Coast powerhouse. But in a Dallas suburb, two teenagers struggled to reconcile the father they'd known with the man who'd abandoned his first family. Their world hadn't ended. It had revealed itself as built on fiction, requiring a new foundation of truth. In the Morrison Reeves boardroom, Eleanor called an all-hands meeting. Employees filled the space, uncertain about their futures despite reassurances. The morning's integration had been smooth, but everyone sensed deeper currents. "Before we move forward," Elena began, "transparency is essential. You deserve to know why Morrison International pursued this acquisition." She clicked a remote. The screens showed a photograph, a water-damaged image of a young family outside a modest New Orleans home. 28 years ago, I married Marcus Reeves. We had 2 children, Sophia and Daniel. We struggled financially, but we were building something together. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Several longtime employees leaned forward, recognizing implications. When Hurricane Katrina struck, Marcus was in Dallas. He returned to New Orleans, found us at a Red Cross shelter, and made a choice. He left us there, told authorities we were missing, filed death certificates, collected insurance. The silence was absolute. For 15 years you've worked for a company built on our supposed deaths. The memorial fund bears our names. The foundation story you've heard at every company event. That was us. Except we didn't die, we survived. Jennifer Marshall, Marcus's former assistant, stood. I knew, she said quietly. Not everything, but enough. My nephew disappeared in Katrina. When I researched missing persons, patterns emerged. I've been documenting irregularities for years, hoping someone would listen. We listened. Elena. Confirmed. You and others. Tom Rodriguez, Sarah Chen in accounting, David Morales in maintenance. Each of you had reasons to doubt, to document, to hope for change. Tom Rodriguez stepped forward. 5 years ago, I was approached by Morrison International. They knew about my nephew, about my suspicions. They offered purpose, not just a job, but a mission. Corporate espionage, someone asked. Corporate justice, Tom corrected. Every document I provided was legally obtained, every report factual. We weren't stealing secrets, we were documenting truth. Eleanor resumed control. Marcus Reeves built an empire on lies. We built a company on patience. Today, those paths converge. Morrison International isn't destroying what he created. We're transforming it into what it should have been. Daniel took over, his lawyer's precision evident. No jobs will be lost. No pensions endangered. Criminal charges won't be filed. Marcus has signed agreements ensuring that. This transition is about future, not revenge. But why? Asked Harrison Blackwood, the CFO. Why not expose him years ago? Because destruction is easy, Sophia answered. We wanted to build something better, prove that abandonment doesn't define the abandoned, that patience and planning triumph over shortcuts and lies. Elena displayed organizational charts. Every Morrison acquisition over 5 years created leverage for today. We didn't just want his company. We wanted to demonstrate that ethical business practices create stronger foundations than deception. The Memorial Fund, someone called out. What happens to it? It continues, Elena said. Expanded to help all separated families, not just storm victims. Run transparently, with every dollar accounted for. The false memorial becomes true service. Patricia Whitmore Reeves entered unexpectedly, her teenage children beside her. The crowd parted as they approached the front. My children wanted to meet their siblings, Patricia announced, to understand their full family, regardless of how it formed. Emma and Michael stood nervously before Sophia and Daniel. The half-siblings studied each other, strangers connected by a father's betrayal, choosing connection over division. We're glad you're alive, Emma said simply. The room watched as abandoned children and protected children bridged 15 years of lies with a single truth. Family was what you chose to build, not what others tried to bury. This is Morrison International, Eleanor concluded. We build on truth, not graves. Welcome to your real foundation. The revelation rippled through Dallas business circles like a stone dropped in still water. By evening, carefully controlled leaks had reached select media contacts, each receiving the same narrative, a strategic merger with a powerful human interest angle. In his Preston Hollow mansion, Marcus watched the coverage unfold. The reporters spoke of corporate transformation and visionary leadership, never mentioning abandonment or fraud. Elena had kept her word, protecting his public facade while dismantling his private empire. Patricia had moved into the guest wing with Emma and Michael. Their family existed in strange suspension, together but irreparably changed. Over dinner, silence stretched between them until Michael broke it. "I want to work there," he announced. "At Morrison Reeves, learn the real business, not the lies." Marcus set down his fork. "You're 12. Summer internship when I'm older. Sophia said she'd mentor me. You've spoken to them." "This afternoon," Emma added. "They're our siblings. We can hate what you did without hating them." Patricia watched this exchange with clinical detachment. "They're remarkable people," she said to Marcus. "What Eleanor built from nothing, it's what you pretended to do." That night, Marcus found himself alone in his study, surrounded by awards and accolades now revealed as props in an elaborate fiction. His phone showed missed calls from former associates, but he knew their sympathies would evaporate once truth emerged. At Morrison Reeves Tower, the integration continued around the clock. Elena had established a war room on the executive floor, monitoring every aspect of the transition. "Investor confidence is holding," James Chen reported. The expansion plans actually excited them more than Marcus's conservative approach. "Because we're building on solid ground," Elena replied, "not the shifting sand of fabrication." Tom Rodriguez entered with security updates. All access codes changed. Marcus's allies have been identified. Most are choosing cooperation over conflict. "Good. We want converts, not casualties." Sophia coordinated with PR teams, crafting messages for different audiences. Employees received transparency, investors got stability, media heard inspiration. Each narrative served the larger truth while protecting innocence. Patricia called, Sophia mentioned. "She wants to maintain her medical partnerships with us." "Of course," Eleanor agreed. "She's a victim too. Her expertise remains valuable." Daniel reviewed legal documents with his team. The Singapore accounts are frozen, 43 million recovered so far. Marcus was 3 months from disappearing completely. "But we were 3 steps ahead," Elena noted with satisfaction. By midnight, the first phase was complete. Morrison Reeves stood unified under new leadership. Its foundation shifted from lies to truth. Employees who'd served Marcus out of fear now worked with purpose. Those who'd suspected the deception felt validated. In her new office, Marcus's former space transformed with light and openness. Elena stood before the windows. Dallas sprawled below, unaware that one of its titans had fallen and risen in the same day. "Any regrets?" Daniel asked, joining her. "None," Elena replied. "We gave him 15 years to confess, to make amends. He chose continued deception. We chose patient justice. And now we build what should have existed all along, a company that serves communities, not ego. Success measured in lives improved, not lies maintained." Across the city, Marcus lay awake, finally understanding the message his abandoned family had delivered. Some storms don't destroy, they reveal. And what Katrina had revealed about him had taken 15 years to reach shore, carrying with it the family he'd tried to wash away. 6 weeks into the transition, Morrison Reeves had transformed from a traditional development company into something unprecedented. The executive floor, once a fortress of dark wood and closed doors, now featured collaborative spaces and walls of living plants. The quarterly projections, James Chen reported to Elena, barely containing his enthusiasm, "We're up 18%. The transparency initiatives actually improved productivity. Fear is expensive," Elena replied, reviewing the numbers. "Trust is profitable." Through glass walls, she could see Sophia leading a workshop with junior employees. Her daughter had instituted open-door mentorship. breaking down hierarchies Marcus had carefully constructed. In legal, Daniel processed the latest batch of voluntary disclosures. The amnesty program had surfaced dozens of minor corruptions, each addressed without destroying careers. Richardson from Permitting came forward, he announced during the morning briefing. Admitted to expediting approvals for bribes, he's offered to testify if other developers are investigated. Accept his cooperation, Elena decided. Redemption requires opportunity. The Memorial Fund had been restructured completely. Patricia Whitmore Reeves now served as medical advisor. Her expertise, valuable despite personal turmoil. She'd thrown herself into the work with surgical precision, perhaps finding healing in service. 20 families reunited this month, Patricia reported during a board meeting. The expansion beyond storm victims has quadrupled our impact. Emma and Michael had become regular fixtures at the tower. Emma shadowed Sophia in strategic planning, while Michael peppered Daniel with legal questions. Their eagerness to understand the business, the real business, provided unexpected joy. "They're nothing like him," Sophia observed to her mother. Patricia raised them with actual values. "Children aren't their parents' sins," Elena reminded her. "We're living proof." Marcus, meanwhile, had retreated into isolation. His consulting contract required monthly reports, but no presence. He submitted them punctually, detailed documents that revealed his continued strategic mind, but carried an undertone of defeat. "He's living in Austin," Tom Rodriguez reported during a security briefing. "Small condo, minimal social contact. The settlement's mostly gone to Patricia and debt payments." "Is he a threat?" Elena asked. "No, he seems..." Tom searched for words. "Diminished, like a photo left in sunlight too long." The media coverage had evolved from merger announcement to business school case study. Harvard requested Elena for a guest lecture on ethical acquisition strategies. Forbes ran a feature titled "The 15-Year Plan, How Patience Beats Power." But the real victory played out in smaller moments, when the Houston branch manager called to report their best quarter ever, when employees felt safe suggesting improvements, when young developers sought mentorship instead of fearing criticism. "We need to discuss succession planning," Daniel suggested during a family dinner. Elena laughed. "I just took over." "Long-term thinking," Sophia agreed. "We should create structures that prevent another Marcus. Term limits, rotation of leadership, checks and balances." "The empire model dies with Marcus," Elena nodded. "We build a republic." They drafted plans ensuring no single person could dominate as Marcus had. Power would flow through merit and consensus, not personality and fear. Late that night, Elena walked the empty halls of Morrison Reeves. In the lobby, workers installed a new art piece, not the imposing sculpture Marcus had favored, but a water feature representing renewal. The inscription read, "From every storm, new growth." Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You won. Completely. I hope it brings you peace. M." Eleanor stared at the message, then deleted it. Peace wasn't the goal, justice was. And justice, properly served, created its own peace. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove that ethical business wasn't an oxymoron. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The message had been delivered. The storm had passed, and from the ground where abandonment had been planted, something infinitely stronger had grown. 1 year later, the Dallas skyline looked the same, but Morrison Reeves Tower had become a different kind of landmark. Business students toured its innovative spaces. Social entrepreneurs studied its community programs. The company that once symbolized ruthless ambition now represented transformative leadership. Elena stood in the rooftop garden, an addition that turned unused space into an employee sanctuary. The morning sun illuminated the city where Marcus had built his empire of lies, now home to something far more enduring. The annual report, Sophia approached with a tablet. Record profits, record employee satisfaction, record community investment. The board's ecstatic. Numbers tell one story, Elena replied. The real measure is in lives changed. They walked among raised beds where employees grew vegetables for local food banks. Daniel emerged from the stairwell bringing coffee and news. Michael got into Columbia, he announced. Early admission. His essay about family truth and corporate ethics apparently impressed them. Elena smiled. Patricia's children had flourished once freed from their father's shadow. Emma pursued photography, documenting urban renewal projects. Michael aimed for business school, determined to prove ethical leadership profitable. Speaking of family, Sophia mentioned, Patricia's arriving soon. The clinic proposal needs final approval. Patricia had evolved from victim to partner, her medical expertise invaluable in Morrison Reeves's healthcare initiatives. Their relationship, two women bound by one man's betrayals, had transformed into genuine respect. Any word from Marcus? Daniel asked carefully. His consulting contract expired last month, Elena said. He didn't request renewal. Marcus lived quietly in Austin, teaching part-time at a community college. His course, Ethics in Business, was apparently popular, though students didn't know their professor's history. Perhaps teaching what he'd failed to practice was his form of penance. The Memorial Fund Gala is next week, Sophia reminded them. Media's requesting interviews about the first year. Let the results speak, Elena decided. We've reunited 300 families, built 50 affordable housing units, funded 70 scholarships. That's our statement. James Chen joined them, now Chief Operations Officer, carrying his perpetual tablet and wearing his signature efficiency like armor. The Singapore properties have been fully integrated, he reported. The affordable housing conversion is ahead of schedule. Where Marcus had hidden $43 million in stolen assets, they'd created homes for families displaced by various storms, natural and human-made. There's one more thing, James added, seeming uncertain. We received an unusual donation to the Memorial Fund, anonymous but traceable to an Austin source. $2 million. They exchanged glances. Marcus's remaining assets, perhaps, his attempt at atonement or simply tax strategy. Elena chose not to investigate further. Apply it to the scholarship program, she decided. Education breaks cycles. As noon approached, the garden filled with employees taking lunch breaks. The space Marcus would have reserved for executive privilege had become communal sanctuary. Conversations in multiple languages created a symphony of inclusion. We've proven the model works, Daniel observed. Other companies are adopting our practices. Good, Elena said. The message spreads beyond us. Patricia arrived with her children, Emma carrying camera equipment and Michael debating business theory with anyone who'd listen. The half-siblings gathered naturally now, their bond transcending origin. Family meeting? Patricia suggested. I have news about the clinic expansion. They descended to Elena's office, bright, open, accessible. No throne room, but a workspace, designed for collaboration. As they planned next phases, Elena reflected on the journey from that FEMA trailer to this moment. Marcus had abandoned them during a storm, believing they'd disappear into chaos. Instead, they'd emerged stronger, patient, prepared. The message they'd carried for 15 years, that abandonment plants seeds for its own reckoning, had been delivered with precision. Now came the harder task, proving that power gained through patience and ethics outlasted empires built on convenient graves. 1 year had validated the approach. The next would expand it. As the meeting continued, Dallas hummed beyond the windows, unaware that in one gleaming tower, a new model of success was rewriting the rules. Not through revolution, but through revelation. Not by destroying what was, but by building what should be. The storm had passed. The message was delivered, and from the ruins of one man's lies, a family had built something true.